Let's start our next chapter. This video will introduce you to the concept of arrays. An array is basically used to store multiple values instead of a single value. It is used to store a list of elements. However, there's one requirement for this. All elements of an array should be of the same data type, meaning if we try to store elements of different data types in an array, compilation fails. So, if we are storing 5 integer numbers, a better idea is to store them in an array instead of creating 5 different variables, okay? Also, just like variable, arrays can be used to store primitive data as well as objects, meaning non-primitive data. Creating an array involves 2 steps. First, we'll have to declare it. An array is an object that lives on the heap memory. So, declaring basically means we're creating a reference variable. To declare an array, first specify data type of the array. This is the data type of the elements that we want to store in the array. After data type, put square brackets. Then, give the array some name. So, for instance, if we want to create an array named A to store integers, we do that like this. Int is data type, then the square brackets, then a space, followed by name of array. Just remember this, anytime you see square brackets, it means that's an array. So, A is an array that will be used to store values of type int. There are 2 other styles of declaring an array that you should know from exam perspective. Square brackets can be put either before or after the array's name. We can use any of these 3 styles for declaring an array. Please note that merely declaring an array does not actually create an array. So, after declaring an array, the next step is to create the actual array object. We already know that an object is created using new keyword. So, to create array, first write new. Then, mention the same data type that was specified when declaring the array's reference variable. Lastly, put square brackets and specify size of the array. This is because Java must know how much space has to be allocated on the heap for this array. Size means the number of elements that we will store in the array. If no size is specified, compilation fails. So, here's an example of a complete array creation statement. The object is created on right side of equals and reference variable of array is on left side. Initially, when array is declared, its reference variable points to null. However, this is only if the array is declared as an instance variable or a static variable. If array is declared as a local variable, then obviously the default value null will not be assigned. Why? Because we know that local variables never get any default values. Okay? Next, when the array object statement is assigned to the reference variable A of array, the actual array object gets created. This array can store 5 integers. The variable A no longer points to null. Got it? Does this statement compile? This is an example of array declaration statement, right? We cannot specify size when declaring an array, so compilation fails. To declare an array, we write this. Or, if you want to create an array that can hold 10 integers, we do that like this. In Java, every array has a property called length. It can be used to check size of array like this. Remember this for the exam. When we write this SOPLN statement, the output produced is hence 5, okay? Also note that size of an array, once specified at the time of creation, cannot be modified. Size of an array is fixed and cannot be changed. Does this work? The first line works, but compilation fails for the second line. This is because length of array is a property, not a function. The solution is to not put brackets after length, okay? What about this one? Code compiles, but wait, there's a twist. At runtime, when JVM reads this line, it throws an exception called negative array size exception, meaning it gets this error and aborts the application. So, remember this for the exam, size of an array can't be negative. Once an array is created, Java stores default values in it. If an array is of primitives, then default values of primitive variables get stored in the array. For example, as this is an array of int, this line stores 5 zeros in the array as default value for int data type is 0. Default value for non-primitives is null. For example, suppose there's a class called student. As this is an array of type student, which is a non-primitive, this line stores 5 null values by default in the array. So, we know how to create an empty array that gets default values. The syntax we learned so far for creating an array is used when we want to store data in the array that will only be available dynamically at runtime based on user interaction. However, when the values to be stored are available, there is an easier way to fill up the array. The declaration part, meaning left side of equals, remains the same. Only the RHS part changes. All we have to do is put curly brackets and write down the values we want to store separated by a comma. Java will determine size of array based on the number of elements we specify. This is usually used for testing purposes, but when creating an application, this syntax is rarely used. One last tip. When using Array Initializer, declaration and array creation should be done in one step as shown on the right side. If we don't, compilation fails. Okay? That's all for now. Hope you found it informative. See you in the next video.